No, that's it. I give up. Fantasy names are too hard to pronounce. Hi everyone, my name is Kayla and welcome back to Kay's Hidden Shelf, where we talk about books. Today is episode 2 of Indie Spotlight, a series I put together to share some of the recent releases that have come across my radar, as well as some upcoming releases in the indie community. Now, when I say recent releases, these could be released within 6 months to a year, really just anything that was released within a year or so time frame that has been on my radar or recently came to my attention. Now, in today's episode, I actually want some of your feedback. Do you want me to read the descriptions that are available, or do you want me to just give you a brief synopsis or the elevator pitches with the details of the books? Leave your comments down below. I would love to hear from you, because I also don't want to be recording the description of the book if that's not really something you're interested in hearing and you'd rather hear a shorter version. If you would like to continue hearing the descriptions, by all means, leave those comments down below. I do love your input, as it helps me to better understand what you're interested in hearing versus what I think you're interested in hearing. So let's just go ahead and dive in. Now, the first book is Tears of the Maelstrom by Timothy Wolfe. This is book 2 in the series called Legacy of Bolam. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And the pitch for this is, and I quote, book 1, but with more lizard people. I mean, you had me at lizard people. That sounds pretty epic in a fantasy. But since this says it's like book 1, why don't we take a look at book 1? And that is Platinum Tinted Darkness. It's a fantasy at around 414 pages. Let's take a look at the story. The kingdom of Bolam has been lost. The realms have already seen what happens when the gods and their harbingers are left unchecked. Destruction, chaos, death. The gods cannot be trusted. No one knows that better than David Williams, the leader of the Guardians tasked to protect the realms from the gods and their powerful harbingers ever since the fall of Bolam. 6 Guardians take their pledge to leave the squabbles of kingdoms behind and live only to stop the harbingers and protect the realm from the gods. Serena Morgan, a famed crystal mage and guardian, struggles with the Guardian Pact when the kingdom of Terran Gus invades her home. She's supposed to stay out of it, but she can't. When she breaks her oath and joins in the skirmish, she earns the favor of the god of death when the conflict escalates to an all-out war. And he makes her an offer, one that'll make sure she'll never fail in her goals again, to become his harbinger, to partake in the ecstasy of destruction. So this is a series that has been on my radar. It sounds really interesting. It seems unique as well, with the creatures, the lizard people, and the circumstances. I'm really intrigued by it. I wanted to share it with all of you as well, in case this piques your interest as well. What do you think? Next is The Winter Queen's Tale by Naomi P. Cohen. Now, this released back in December of 2023 as well, and it's been on my radar since pre-release. I was offered an arc for it, but unfortunately I did not have time to commit to it at the time. And having read Naomi's other book, The Fae of Castle Garden, I really enjoyed this one. It's one I want to talk about at some point. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars, and I ended up listening to the audiobook narrated by Andrew D. Meredith, who did a phenomenal job. Now, with The Winter Queen's Tale, my interest was piqued for a few reasons. One being my positive experience with The Fae of Castle Garden, but also the Winter Queen, a fairy tale being spun in a different light, and I always love reading fairy tales or fairy tale retellings as well, so this piqued my interest. Let's take a look at the details. The tales warn of fairies lurking beyond the iron-bound trees, eager to snatch wayward children. Yet at the onset of every winter, Neve and Vale cross the iron's protection and dance to the snow bee's song. The year Neve comes of age, a fairy lord joins the dance. He tempts Neve into accepting a dangerous magic and then steals Vale away. Alone in the ice palace, Vale will need all of his wits to survive. Fairies whisper behind every door, and elves watch from the shadows. The Snow Queen's court, plays for blood. To rescue her brother, Neve journeys north. Ice answers her call, but with a terrible price. It will take more than a dream for Neve to master the magic. If she fails, both she and Vale will fall prey to winter's fury. Now, this one is around 280 pages, and if you haven't checked out Naomi P. Cohen's books already, I highly recommend you take a look. Next, we have Undine's Blessing by Tessa Haas-Jarjanto. I am very sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. This is a novella at around 170 pages, and the elevator pitch for this one is Undine's Blessing is the perfect crossover read for middle grade kids wanting something more YA but without the romance or the typical YA themes. With a strong focus on wonder and friendship, it's an adventure of the senses. Now, I don't know about all of you, but I do enjoy the occasional middle grade and YA books. And I do find it hard to get into them or get invested into them unless the author takes the dive, the risk to make the content work for anyone of any age. Not saying that the content needs to be more mature, but in a sense that is more engaging and can be enjoyed by adults as well. It's a very fine line and difficult to pull off, don't get me wrong. A great example of it is The Hobbit by Tolkien, but again, this is just one of those examples where you don't know unless you try, and I am excited to try it because I want to know, does it work for me? Is it the kind of content I might recommend to a family member looking for books for younger ages? That kind of idea as well. And I'm rambling, so let's go ahead and dive into the story. A dutiful daughter, a mystical archipelago, and a hidden power waiting to command the tides. Morella spends her days caring for her sick mother and selling her father's fish. Bound by duty and love, she dreams little of adventure. But when her mother must travel to a city for treatment, her father takes her out to sea despite her fear of water. A storm steers them from Emberon home to a tribe of magical nymphs and a place of secrets, where Morella discovers a startling truth. Her father is a frequent visitor to these mysterious islands. Soon she learns that Emberon isn't the only secret her father had kept from her. Morella has the power to control water and communicate with aquatic animals. Overwhelmed by the magical but dangerous islands and the secrets of her father, Morella must learn to harness her power to save herself and her new aquatic friend before they are separated from their parents forever. Undine's Blessing is a journey of wonder where fears are faced and mysteries unraveled, and a young girl learns the true adventure begins when you dare to embrace who you truly are. Apart from the intriguing concept with the world and story, I am really curious to see how those themes work out and how the author explores them. The final one for recent releases is one that was brought to my attention by the author directly. They actually reached out with their offer of a review request, which unfortunately I have a hold on those for the time being. However, this piqued my interest for a couple reasons, and no, really just one reason, and that is this is the chosen one trope, but in a very different way. The title of this is Help, My Dog is the Chosen One by Ronit J. You heard that right. The dog is the chosen one. I don't know why, but this makes me laugh and also has me really curious how that's going to work out. So let's dive into the details. This was released back in December. It is a debut for the author as well. It's an urban fantasy and about 275 pages. The tagline for this is that Kunal is forced to adventure because his dog is the chosen one. If you ever saw a spin on a trope, I think this would be a perfect example of it. The story here follows Kunal, who is just your average guy living on rent in Mumbai. Working from home and suffering from anxiety, his world is turned upside down when his girlfriend asks him to foster a rescued street dog. Despite his qualms, Kunal agrees because what's the worst that can happen? That's when the extra-dimensional Dark Lord attacks. The dog is the only one who can stop the Dark Lord, but he can't do it without Kunal's help. Can Kunal overcome his many anxieties, or will our world suffer for eternity? That is quite the description. I love this story idea. I am really curious to read this one myself. I love animal companions and seeing how animals play a role in these fantasy stories, but this takes it to a whole other level, and I really want to know how that works out. Next is the upcoming releases. First up is From the Depths by B.S.H. Garcia, and this releases on February 20th of 2024. It is a prequel novella that takes place roughly 1,000 years prior to the events of Thieves and Shadows in the Heart of Quinera series. It'll be 161 pages, and we're going to go ahead and dive into that description. The world can sustain the needs of many, but the greed of a few can destroy it for all. In a life steeped in peril, the Brune family has thrived on the knife's edge. Renowned for their smuggling and bounty exploits, Konar and Carlia's parents command both respect and fear. Comfortable yet haunted, the family faces the constant threat of perilous assignments, leaving scars that even a parent's protective embrace can't heal. Still, Konar dreams of scholarly pursuits, and Carlia sees the world as something ripe for the taking. When the Emperor dangles an irresistible offer, a job to end their dangerous pursuits forever, the Brune seize the chance. But there's a catch. The item in question is little more than a myth, deemed impossible to find. As the family embarks on the voyage of a lifetime, their bonds are tested like never before. Locating and securing the prize will require sacrifices beyond measure. And when your family is in the business of pirating, trust is the greatest myth of them all. I mean, pirating, smuggling, fantasy, a mythical prize, all of that sounds intriguing, and it seems like it will be a good intro to the author's stories. Next is Demon's Rage by Ben Gailey and David S. Tays. Now, this is releasing on February 20th as well, and it is also book 2 in a series, specifically the Bloodwood Saga by the same authors. Now, Demon's Rage will be 612 pages, whereas book 1, Demon's Reign, is 546 pages. Demon's Reign follows Tarkosi, a nobody who will save his world from demons and hellfire. The elevator pitch for the series is Avatar: The Last Airbender meets Venom in this epic progression fantasy perfect for fans of Iron Prince, Cradle, and Kingfall. I mean, between the covers and Avatar: The Last Airbender meets Venom, I was sold. Let's go ahead and look at the description for Demon's Reign, Book 1. The third born of a shamed family, Tarkosi's lot in life is to spend his days as a worker, feeding temperamental lace wings under a harsh master. His days in the Bloodwood city of Shalgara are full of drudgery, tedium, and pain, his own ambitions cast aside in the name of order. That is until demons from a broken world invade the forest realm of the Swaith, and an accident born of violence and dark magic intertwines Tarkosi's fate with the greatest among them. Forced onto the front lines of a war forgotten by history, Tarkosi must balance battling the royal demon bound to him with the rapid progression of the magical abilities its presence has bestowed. Risking everything, he will need to tread a thin line between hero and heretic to keep Shalgara from falling into ruin and chaos. It certainly seems like it's going to be action-packed. And can we give some kudos to all of these authors for giving fantastic elevator pitches? Next, we have Sing No Sons, Sing the Night by Michael Michel. Now, Michael Michel is the author of The Price of Power and War Song. I have read The Price of Power. It was one of my honorable mentions within my best of 2023. I loved his writing, and that was only his debut. I've yet to catch up on War Song, but I am very excited to do that. And this, of course, piques my interest as well. Let's look at the details. This will be releasing on February 20th as well. It's going to be a collection of SFF stories and is around 137 pages. The elevator pitch for this is Sing No Suns, Sing the Night is an SFF short story collection and an ode to grimdark. Hope and despair, love and hate, sweet beginnings and sour endings. These stories cover themes that challenge our beliefs about self, society, and the nature of living. I believe this will also be a first for the author in writing sci-fi, so I'm really intrigued to see how he pulls that off, how his storytelling works in the genre. Again, I'm just looking forward to this one, and I do think that if you have not checked out Michael Michel's writing already, you absolutely should definitely take a look, because The Price of Power is an impressive debut that dives into grimdark and is great for fans of Joe Abercrombie. Next, we have The Ballad of Spearkit the Bard and Company by Sean O'Boyle. This is releasing on March 15th, and the elevator pitch for this is a Discworld meets Lies of Locke Lamora adventure. While I haven't read too far into Discworld and I haven't dived into the Lies of Locke Lamora, everything I've heard tells me that this will likely be a new fan favorite for quite a few people. It's 460 pages. Let's dive into that description. The Freelands, a far-off fantastical world full of noble warriors, gallant heroes, and gentle souls. Spearkit the Bard is precisely none of those things. However, he's not without his own unique qualities. He enjoys the simple things in life, song, merriment, and mostly victimless swindles. But this little bard carries a secret. He has a mission to do, a promise to keep. As an elite force seeks to intercept him, the journey ahead is long and dangerous, with hurdles aplenty, monstrous creatures, dastardly villains, laborious hikes, and most of all, Spearkit himself. But he's not without allies, reluctant and disdainful as they are. Help is help at the end of the day, and by the notes does he need it. The clock is ticking, the cavalry is coming, and Spearkit the Bard doesn't know his arse from his elbow. Bards love to tell tales of adventures, but will Spearkit last long enough to recount his own? I love bards in fantasy, and this sounds like it's going to have a fun tone to it as well. Kind of reminds me of Springtide Harvest by J.D. Mitchell. It was a classic fantasy dungeon crawler kind of story. It had high stakes, but it was also fun overall. Next is Mushroom Blues by Adrian M. Gibson. You might already know Adrian. He is one of the creators or co-creators of the SFF Addicts podcast. Now, this will be Adrian's debut, and he announced it with a bang. He had a few weeks worth of events celebrating the release and reveals, from the cover to details, you name it, along with a full trailer. I'll leave all the links in the description below. Same with all the other books we're talking about today. But if you're interested in seeing what that schedule was like, it was pretty crazy. Now, this does release on March 19th, and the elevator pitch for it is Blade Runner, True Detective, and District 9 meld with the weird worlds of Jeff Vandermeer and China Mayville in Adrian M. Gibson's fungal punk noir debut. Let's take a look at that description. 2 years after a devastating defeat in the decade-long Spore War, the island nation of Hopon and its capital city of Neo-King. So, behind the scenes, I have attempted and failed around 4 or 5 times to read this description. I cannot pronounce the names for the life of me, and I should know better with how much fantasy and sci-fi I read. Now, that being said, I highly recommend you go take a look at the description. Again, this is an urban fantasy. We have some detectives. It is such an intriguing world, especially for people who love mushrooms and spores and different kinds of settings. This seems like it is going to be unique as well as an intriguing read. The final one for today's episode is actually under both categories, recent releases and upcoming, because it is a new fantasy magazine series. This is the Grim Dwarf magazine by JCM Byrne, who is the editor-in-chief. And best of all, it is free. It is a free e-magazine full of fantastical tales, and JCM Byrne, who is the author of Wistful Ascending, is writing his own little tale throughout this, which I may or may not be Tuckerized as one of the characters. You can download each issue they release every Sunday. Currently, there are 9 issues available, so you do have some backlog to check out, and of course, new issues are coming out every Sunday. Now, each issue contains one chapter of The Grim Dwarf by JCM Byrne. This is a serialized story about a cursed dwarf and his dog, a tale of knuckles and necromancy, and most issues also contain an assortment of other stories. For example, there are currently 3 serialized stories right now, all from published authors. Like I said, there's 9 issues currently available, more are coming, so if you're looking at getting caught up or checking it out, it is free. Go check out the link in the description if you want to take a look. I do recommend the Grim Dwarf series. I've only read 1 chapter, but like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed it and I'm looking forward to coming back to it. And that is everything for this episode. There were quite a few books here and there are more in the next episode. I would love to know which books stood out to you, which ones are interesting, and how many made it to your TBR from this episode. Leave your comments down below. I always love hearing from you. As always, thank you so much for watching and take care of yourselves.